Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about how to swim faster and more efficient without making things too complicated. I have seen so many videos and so many people talk about swimming in a very complicated way. So instead, we're going to break down freestyle but keep it very simple. The first thing that you must understand when swimming, there are only two ways in which you can make yourself go forward. One of them is pulling and one of them is kicking, meaning those are the two main factors which are going to allow you to move forward through the water. So let's break down your pull in a very simple way. The first thing I want you to imagine is that there are two parallel lines running either side of your body. As you pull the water, your goal is to keep your hands and your fingertips on that line, meaning you do not want to come across your body, you do not want to come outside of your body, you want to make sure your fingertips stay in a perfectly straight line and your palm is facing behind you as you are taking your pull. This will allow you to send all the water which you are pulling directly behind you, which will help you move forward. A common mistake many swimmers have is as soon as they start coming off that line, pulling to the side or pulling outside of their body, you'll see them swimming side to side, which is obviously what we do not want. All the water that we are pulling, we want to make sure we are sending behind us in order to go forward as much as we can. Now, let's actually talk about your pulling technique. The two most common problems that you can make when pulling the water is either letting your elbow drop or trying to pull the water with your wrist, both of which you want to make sure you are trying to avoid. Instead, make sure you are keeping your wrist strong and think of it as your paddle. Your lats and your shoulders are much stronger than your wrist, therefore always keep your wrist nice and strong. Secondly, do not let your elbow drop as you are initiating your pull. Instead, imagine you are wrapping your arm around the barrel whilst keeping your elbow nice and high and then pushing it all the way past your hip. You also want to make sure your palm is facing behind you, as this is how you know you are sending the water in the correct direction. If you find yourself with your palm facing down, to the side or up, you are simply not pulling the water the right way. And moving forward onto the most important part of your pull, which is your palm coming out of the water first. This means you have to make sure by the time you have finished your pull, your palm is facing up to the sky and your palm comes out of the water first. A huge mistake swimmers make is allowing their elbows to come out of the water first, meaning they are not finishing their pull. Always remember, your goal is to try and pull as much water as possible. As soon as your elbow comes out of the water first, you know you are not maximizing the amount of water that you could be pulling. Therefore, palm out of the water first, always. And lastly, you want to make sure you are thinking about the direction in which your palm is facing. Meaning you do not want to apply pressure to your pull whilst your palm is still facing down at the beginning of your stroke. You want to make sure you're only starting to pull the water harder as your palm is facing behind you, as this is when you'll start to move yourself forward. If you try to press against the water whilst your palm is still facing down, you'll simply end up bobbing up and down in the water, which is something we do not want. As mentioned already, your goal is to go forward and forwards only. As soon as you find yourself moving in any other direction, stop and think, am I doing this correctly? If you are moving side to side or up and down, the chances are you are not. To recap your pull, make sure you are imagining those two parallel lines running either side of your body. You are not allowing your elbow to drop or trying to pull the water with your wrist. Instead, keep your wrist nice and strong and make sure you are getting your elbow up nice and high as you're initiating your pull. If it helps you, imagine that you are wrapping that hand around the barrel. Keep those fingertips looking down and make sure you are pulling all the way past your hip. And do not allow your palm to face any other way apart from behind you. Now, let's talk about your kick. The biggest mistake any swimmer can make when kicking the water is having stiff legs. This is the equivalent of a fish trying to move through the water with metal fins. In order to move forward and get the most out of your kick, you want to make sure you have fluidity and flexibility in your legs. And the only way you will get that is by keeping your legs nice and relaxed. You have to make sure you are focusing on frequency rather than power. Make sure your legs stay nice and long and you are kicking from your hips and not your knees. A great way to think about this is imagining that you have a bolt drilled into the side of your hip and your leg is just hanging from that bolt, meaning your leg stays nice and relaxed and you are just focusing on nice, small, fast kicks. And let's not forget about your ankles. Your ankles must also stay very relaxed. Imagine you have socks on your feet and you're trying your best to shake your socks off. And the only way you're gonna do that is by keeping your ankles as floppy and as relaxed as you can. Another great tip to having a great front row leg kick is making sure you are pressing up with the back of your knee after each kick. So once you have kicked your leg down, make sure you are pressing back up with the back of your leg. This will help you keep your legs nice and long. Now, I have just spoken about 10 different things that you could use to help your freestyle, but you have to understand that you must take things one step at a time. It is physically impossible for you to go to the pool and practice 10 things at once. When learning swimming, you must focus on one technical point at a time. So if your goal for tomorrow's session is just to make sure you are pulling the water correctly, make sure you are spending the right amount of time making sure you are pulling the water correctly before you move on to your kick. Once again, a very big mistake a lot of swimmers make is moving on before they have mastered a certain skill. Always remember, you have only learned something once you can do it without always having to think about it. So if you can pull the water correctly without always having to remind yourself, that's when you know you are ready for the next step. So we have just covered the only 2 things which will allow you to move through the water forwards. And of course, there are many different techniques and things that you can do that will help you decrease resistance and allow you to maximize your distance per stroke. The main one being rotation. When swimming freestyle, rotation is the only thing which will allow you to make your strokes longer. Therefore, in order to become more efficient and maximize your distance per stroke, you have to make sure you are rotating into every single stroke that you take. Now, do not forget that rotation is not a shrug of your shoulders or a twist of your hips, it is a movement of your whole body. Let's have a look at these 2 videos. Swimmer on the left is rotating beautifully. Swimmer on the right is not rotating at all. You can clearly see how the swimmer on the right is taking so many more strokes than a swimmer on the left. And the only reason being is rotation. You can also see that everything apart from the head is rotating. The shoulders, the hips, the feet, everything is moving side to side, but your head must stay still. The only reason to why your head should ever move on freestyle is only for your breath. One of the best drills to practice rotation is to simply do it outside of the water. Stand up straight, look directly in front of you and just rotate your shoulders, hips and feet 90 degrees without moving your head. Once you can do that, simply transfer that into the water. Feel free to use your fins. Place both arms by your side, look directly down at the bottom of the pool and practice that same rotational movement. Your goal is to try and get your shoulder in line with your chin every single time. And once you are able to do this continuously, you can then start to introduce your arms and keep that exact same rotation. If you are doing this correctly, your head should stay nice and still and your shoulder should come out of the water every single time you take your stroke. To make things even easier and take breathing out of the equation, you can use something like a snorkel. And then you can really focus on just rotating your body and keeping a nice flat body position. Which leads me onto my final point of today's video, which is your body position. Body positioning is very, very simple. All you have to do is make sure that your fingertips, your shoulders, your hips, your knees, your feet are all perfectly in line with the surface as you are swimming and moving through the water. If you can feel that your legs are sinking or your hips are sinking or your shoulders are in the wrong place, you simply have to make sure you get those up to the surface. That's all you have to think about. One of the best ways to practice your body position is to simply float. You can do this on your back or on your front. If you find that your legs are sinking, you can simply put a pull buoy in between your ankles, which will help you keep and maintain that nice flat body position. And if your legs are still sinking, there are usually 2 reasons for this. Your head is either too high or you are simply not kicking correctly. So make sure you go back to the beginning of the video and focus on your kicking technique. So the point of today's video was just to help you understand that swimming is a very complicated sport, but the simpler your approach, the better and the faster you're going to progress. So stop overthinking, take things one step at a time, and you will progress. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.